She dropped into the empty chair across from me. Her fingers trembled around a half-empty coffee cup. Without looking up, she whispered, "Please, smile like you know me." I frowned. She took a shaky breath. "My ex just walked in. And if he thinks I'm alone, he'll come over." Then the cafe door opened again. A man stepped inside, looked straight at our table, and started walking toward us. The first thing Noah Bennett noticed wasn't her fear. It was how hard she was trying to hide it. She wore a simple beige coat, her dark auburn hair loosely tied back, and she couldn't have been older than 30. She wasn't crying. She wasn't panicking. She was pretending everything was normal. People who had never been afraid wouldn't notice. Noah did, because he'd spent years teaching middle school students how to recognize the emotions people tried hardest to hide. He smiled naturally, just enough to make their conversation believable. "You're late," he said. She blinked, then quickly understood. "I know. I'm buying your coffee." The performance had begun. The man approaching their table slowed. He was tall, expensively dressed. Confident in the way people become after years of never hearing the word no. His eyes remained fixed on the woman. "Emma," she looked up as if surprised. "Oh, hi, Derek." His attention shifted to Noah. "And you are?" Noah extended his hand. "Noah, a friend." Derek ignored the handshake. "I didn't know you were seeing someone." Emma smiled politely. "I'm having coffee." It wasn't an answer. Derek hated that. He forced a laugh. "You always move on fast." Noah noticed something important. Emma didn't defend herself. She simply stayed quiet. People recovering from difficult relationships often wasted years trying to explain themselves. She no longer did. Derek leaned closer. "We should talk." Emma shook her head. "I don't think that's necessary." "It is for me." "It isn't for me." The cafe had become unusually quiet. Several customers pretended not to watch. Noah calmly spoke. "I think she's already answered." Derek looked annoyed. "This doesn't concern you." Noah nodded. "You're right. It concerns her. And she already said no." For several long seconds, nobody moved. Finally, Derek laughed dismissively. "Fine." He pointed toward Emma. "You always make terrible decisions." Then he walked away. The bell above the cafe door rang. Silence returned. Emma remained frozen. Only after Derek disappeared outside did she finally exhale. I'm sorry," Noah smiled. "You don't owe me an apology. I interrupted your afternoon. You improved it." She laughed for the first time, a real laugh, small but real. 20 minutes later, they were still talking. Not about Derek, about books, favorite cities, embarrassing childhood memories. Emma confessed she restored antique furniture. Noah admitted he still carried terrible drawings made by former students because he couldn't throw them away. Conversation felt strangely effortless. When she finally stood to leave, she hesitated. "I know this sounds strange, but thank you," he smiled. "I only drank coffee." "No, you believed me." There was a difference. 3 days passed. Noah assumed he'd never see her again. Life had always been full of brief encounters. Some people arrived, changed one afternoon, then disappeared forever. Saturday morning, Noah visited the local farmer's market. While choosing fresh apples, he heard a familiar voice. "I was hoping I'd run into you." Emma stood beside a flower stall carrying a basket filled with herbs and fresh bread. He laughed. "You followed me." She raised an eyebrow. "This is my neighborhood." "Fair point." Instead of going separate ways, they spent 2 hours walking through the market, sampling homemade jam, listening to a teenage violinist, buying flowers neither of them needed. For someone Noah had known less than a week, conversation felt unusually comfortable. As they reached the parking lot, Emma's smile faded. Across the street, a silver SUV sat parked, its engine running. Nobody stepped out. Nobody looked at them. Still, Emma quietly stopped walking. Noah noticed immediately. "What is it?" she whispered. "He's done this before." "Who?" "Derek. He waits. He thinks eventually I'll come over." Noah looked toward the SUV. The windows were tinted. He couldn't see inside. "Are you sure it's him?" "I don't know, but I don't want to find out." Without saying another word, Noah unlocked his car. "I'll drive you home." "I can't ask that." "You didn't." "I offered." The drive remained mostly silent. Emma stared out the window. Finally she spoke. "I used to think love meant never giving up on someone." She smiled sadly. "Sometimes love means knowing when to leave." Noah nodded. "I think that's wisdom. When they reached her apartment, she didn't immediately get out. Instead, she reached into her bag, pulled out a small folded envelope. "This is embarrassing. What is it?" "My cafe bill." He looked confused. "You paid." "I know. I don't like unfinished debts." Inside, instead of cash, was a handwritten note. "Thank you for making a stranger feel safe when she needed it most." Noah carefully folded the note. "I think I'll keep this." She smiled warmly. "I hoped you would." Over the following weeks, coffee became lunch. Lunch became evening walks. Evening walks became long phone calls that stretched past midnight. Neither rushed anything, neither called it dating. It simply felt easy. One rainy Thursday, Emma invited Noah to her furniture workshop. Old wooden tables, half-finished rocking chairs, the smell of fresh pine. She carefully sanded the edge of an antique chair. "You know why I restore old furniture?" He shook his head. "Because people throw away beautiful things, just because they're damaged." She looked at him. "I used to think people did the same." Noah smiled. "Some do, but not everyone." She looked as if she wanted to believe him. Just then, the workshop door suddenly opened. A bouquet of white roses landed on the floor. Attached to them, a handwritten card. Emma's smile disappeared. Her hands began shaking. Noah picked up the card. It contained only 6 words. "You belong with me, always have." There was no signature. There didn't need to be. Emma whispered, "He's found me again." Noah read the note again. "You belong with me, always have." He quietly folded the card and placed it back among the roses. Emma didn't cry. She simply stared at the floor. "I'm so tired." Those 4 words hurt more than tears ever could. Noah gently asked, "Has he threatened you before?" Emma nodded. "Not in ways people could prove." She took a slow breath. "He sends gifts I never asked for. He appears where I shop. He tells everyone he's just trying to win me back." She looked at Noah. "The hardest part is that everyone thinks it's romantic." Noah understood. Sometimes the most frightening behavior arrived wearing the mask of love. The next morning, Noah visited the cafe where they'd first met. The elderly owner, Mrs. Alvarez, recognized him immediately. "The brave teacher," he smiled. "I don't know about brave." She poured him coffee. "I saw everything that day. You looked calm." "I wasn't," she nodded knowingly. "The calmest people usually aren't." Before he left, she handed him a folded receipt. "Your friend forgot this." On the back, Emma had scribbled a grocery list. At the bottom was one extra sentence. "Thank you for reminding me that kind people still exist." Noah smiled to himself. That afternoon, Emma received a phone call. An art museum downtown wanted to restore 20 antique benches before their grand reopening. It was the biggest project her small workshop had ever been offered. She should have been celebrating. Instead, she hesitated. "What if Derek shows up there too?" Noah looked at her. "Then you won't face him alone." For the next month, the museum became their second home. Emma carefully restored century-old wooden benches. Noah volunteered after school, sanding wood and carrying supplies despite having absolutely no talent for restoration. Emma often laughed at his crooked brush strokes. "You've painted the same board 3 times. I'm aiming for perfection. You're achieving confusion." Their laughter echoed through the empty museum halls. Little by little, fear made room for peace. Then came opening night. The museum hosted a charity gala. Artists, journalists, local business owners, families. Emma stood proudly beside the restored benches as visitors admired her work. One elderly man quietly ran his hand across the polished wood. "My wife proposed to me on a bench just like this." He smiled through tears. "Thank you for bringing memories back." Emma suddenly realized. She hadn't been restoring furniture, she'd been restoring pieces of people's lives. Halfway through the evening, the atmosphere changed. Noah noticed Emma's smile disappear near the entrance. Derek had arrived, expensive suit, perfect smile. As though he belonged there, he walked confidently toward them. "I heard congratulations were in order." Emma stayed calm. "This is a private event, so I wanted to support you." "You weren't invited." He shrugged. "I don't need an invitation." Several guests turned to watch. Noah stepped beside Emma, not in front of her, beside her, exactly where she wanted him. Derek laughed. "So this is your new hero?" Noah answered quietly. "No, I'm just someone who respects her answer." Derek rolled his eyes. "You really think she'll stay with you?" Emma interrupted before Noah could reply. No, both men looked at her. She continued. I'm staying because I choose to, not because of Noah, not because of Derek, because of herself for the first time. The decision belonged entirely to her. Security approached. The museum director had already been informed Derek wasn't invited. He was politely escorted outside. No shouting, no dramatic fight, just consequences. Emma watched the doors close behind him. Then she whispered, I think, that's the first time I've ever watched him leave instead of me. Weeks later, the museum restoration won a city preservation award. Emma's workshop became busier than ever. Young apprentices began applying to learn from her. One afternoon, a shy college student admitted, I almost quit woodworking. I thought I wasn't good enough. Emma smiled gently. I used to believe that about myself too. She handed the student a worn-out wooden chair. Let's fix this together. Winter arrived. The first snowfall covered the city. Noah invited Emma back to the same cafe where everything had started. Mrs. Alvarez greeted them with a huge smile. This table has been waiting for you. It was the exact table. The same chairs, the same window overlooking the street. Emma laughed softly. I never imagined we'd end up back here. Noah looked at her. I hoped we would. He reached into his coat pocket. Emma raised an eyebrow. If that's another coffee receipt, he smiled. It's something better. Instead of a ring, he placed a small carved wooden nameplate on the table. It read, Bennett and Collins Community Workshop. She looked confused. What is this? I've been talking with the school district. They want students to learn woodworking, furniture restoration, and basic life skills. They asked if we'd run the program together. Emma stared at him. You planned all this? I had help. Mrs. Alvarez appeared carrying 2 slices of pie. The entire neighborhood had help. The flower shop owner donated plants. The museum donated old furniture. Parents volunteered. Former students signed up without realizing it. Emma had become part of a community that quietly believed in her. Tears filled her eyes. You didn't rescue me. No, you reminded me that I wasn't alone. Noah reached across the table. You reminded me too, of what? That kindness isn't always something big. Sometimes, it's just making room at your table for someone who's afraid. Emma smiled. And sometimes, that seat changes your whole life. Outside, snowflakes drifted gently past the cafe windows. Inside, Mrs. Alvarez flipped the little closed sign to reserved. Not because the cafe was full, but because she knew some conversations deserved all the time in the world. And Noah realized something as he looked across the table at Emma. The most important day of his life hadn't started with a grand plan. It had started with a frightened stranger asking for one simple favor. Pretend you know me, he had, and somewhere between pretending and genuinely caring, neither of them had noticed the moment it became real.